Thank you. Kia ora everybody, ko Sarah toka ingoa. My name is Sarah Washbrook and I am a Deputy Chair in the TENS Council for Technology Education New Zealand, and I'm really happy to be here today and hosting our Wednesday webinar alongside Lauren here, who is obviously going to be taking us a little bit further into Te Ara Ako. Just to let everybody know that this session will be recorded and it will be presented or uploaded to our TENS YouTube channel for the future. So if you want to have a look at it again, it is going to be a resource there for you to use. And we also have our last one of the year, webinar of the year next month, which is looking at garden to table. So please feel free to sign up for that. But by no means, here we are. We're going to introduce Lauren today. Lauren has lots of experience in teaching, educational management, consultancy, and science communication roles, and now leads the Science Alive Matauranga kaupapa development as part of the Education Perfect team. Lauren is based in Otutahi, and hopefully today we're hoping that we're going to have lots of inspiration, lots of discussion, lots of thinking, and I'm really looking forward to Lauren taking us away with this presentation. Thanks, Lauren. All the best.
Kia ora, thank you so much. And hi everybody who is watching from near and far all over Aotearoa. It is lovely to be here and to share Te Ara Ako with you. So before we jump into any of the info, I will just start us off with a karakia. If you like this karakia, you are more than welcome to take this back to your kura. This was gifted to Education Perfect as a gift to all schools, so you're welcome to use this if you wish. So, kia inui tātou. E te whānau, whaia kia marama, kia whai take e roto i a mahi katoa, kia tū, kia kaha, kia hore te marino, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou kia tātou katoa. Awesome. And a wee bit about me. So, ko te manu e kai ana I te miro, no Ngāti Ngāhere, ko te manu e kai ana I te Matauranga no Ngā Te Ao. Now, that's a beautiful whakatauki that kind of inspires the mahi that I do, and it will pop up later in the presentation, and I'll see if you can spot it and what it means if you haven't heard it before. So, tēnā tātou katoa, e hui hui mai nei, e aku nui aku rahi, tēnā koutou. So, thank you for joining me here today. A little bit about me, moko ake, I whānau mai ahau ki ōtako, no reira kia mihi ahau ki te mana whenua o Tokorohi, kia Ngāi Tahu whānui. So, from Dunedin, Otago originally, the Golden O. Ko te pai maungatua, te pai maunga whakaruru, the Maungatua Mountains that shelter me, ko Tairi, te awa whakaora, and the Tairi River that sustains me. Ko Lauren toku ingoa, ko Otipoti ti toi whenua, e noho ana ahau ki Otatahi Inai, and I now live here in beautiful Christchurch. Kei te mahi ahau ki Education Perfect I tēnei wā, ko te kaihotu o Science Alive Matauranga ki EP. So I work between two companies, Education Perfect and the charitable trust Science Alive. Tēnā koutou katoa I tautoko mai nei ana I tēnei kaupapa. So again, thank you for joining me. Nō reira, aku mihi anō kia tātou e hui hui mai nei, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Awesome. All right, so we are here today to discuss Te Ara Ako. So let me just give you a wee bit of background just to start us off. There's a bit of a journey that's gone in. I'll just flick back here for a second to this slide. So this tells you a little bit about our birth, I guess. So a few years ago, pre-earthquake, Christchurch earthquake, Science Alive used to be this awesome kind of McDonald's playground of science and technology in the beautiful Christchurch. If you've ever been there before, it had a vertical slide and all this cool electronic stuff you could do. And unfortunately, it came down in the earthquake and it wasn't able to be rebuilt. So years have gone past and it's kind of been, where do we go next? They've done a few programs, Kids in Space. They've done a lot with the Antarctic Centre where some of their exhibits are now. But with the changing educational landscape and opportunities such as COVID, which brought in distance learning and things like that, they approached Education Perfect, who are an online digital platform that you may know as Language Perfect prior to 5 years ago, and also as a secondary platform. We now do primary and intermediate as well. And we've joined forces with them, and we have been for the past 2 years, and that's as long as I've been working with the kaupapa as well. So I was brought on to kind of bring it together and figure out what we were going to do with this amazing way to bring science education, technology education, and innovative thinking to all students across the country for free, which is awesome. So everything that we create is completely free to access. And in the top corner, it says for year 5 to 8 learners. But as we've developed, we've found that all of our stuff is accessible by all age groups. So don't feel like if you're not a year 5 to 8 teacher that this doesn't apply to you. There's things in here that apply to everybody. That's originally where we started, and we curriculum aligned to levels 3 and 4 of the curriculum. However, you can adapt up, you can adapt down, you can use the concepts, you can take as little or as much as you like. It's not necessarily a whole program. It's resources for you as teachers and professionals to use your knowledge to be able to implement that in your classroom and your practice. So why Science Alive Matauranga? Matauranga Māori is all about connectedness, and so is science, and so is technology, and bringing these STEM subjects together and connecting everybody together and connecting with our natural world where our Te Ao Māori concepts originate from, right? So we wanted to bring all of this together and showcase these STEM concepts and bring together Matauranga Māori as well. To make it not only relevant for the kids that are in the classrooms that are in front of us and here in Aotearoa, but also to bring mana and to bring back that and revitalise that culture and language of Matauranga Māori and Te Reo Māori. So you'll see that throughout all of our resources, and what I'm focusing on today, Te Ara Ako, is just one of the many modules and the many resources that we've created. The big idea overarching this is to inspire kids with science, technology and innovation like never before, to really get them thinking, hey look, there's an opportunity here for me to do something in these spaces. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. So Te Ara Ako, this one here, Te Ara Ako means a pathway of learning. It's called an innovation framework. There's a lot of discourse around design thinking cycles, project-based learning, inquiry learning, what is which, how do I do each one, what's the difference between them all. In my mind, and I often feel quite illegal saying this, but in my mind I'm going, if the kids are learning, the kids are engaged, and you're making an impact and the kids feel like they have created an impact, does it really matter what it's called? So this whole process is around stages that kids go through to create an impact and have that feeling of, I've created something to share with the world here, and get them to love learning and be inspired in that space. So that's where the idea has come from. It's steeped in solo taxonomy. So if you have worked with solo taxonomy, you'll see some of those keywords, those key stages coming through as we bring the ideas together. And of course, you can see our images here, linking back to Te Wai Pounamu. So Education Perfect is a Dunedin-based company. It was founded by two brothers from Dunedin, and Science Alive Charitable Trust being from Christchurch. So Pounamu plays a special role for both of those companies, but also for Aotearoa as a whole. So we wanted to pay homage to that as well. And often I hear a lot from teachers about, how relevant these images are for kids to understand the thinking cycle. In terms of, they might sit the kids down in a circle and get the kids to pass around a piece of pounamu and see the marbling and to connect with that stone, which brings this into a real tangible way of understanding for the kids as well. So as we go through each stage, you'll see what I mean as we get into it. Okay. I might just skip those, we've talked about that. So just a little bit about the pounamu imagery you can see there. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to pop them in the chat as we go. Happy to pause, happy to be interrupted. Please feel free. Okay, so this second sentence here, this beautiful treasure often hides among rocks waiting for a keen eye to be discovered. That's a lot to do with our first section, that curiosity, and actually it's a skill in itself to know that there's something to be discovered there in the first place. Carvers can transform natural pounamu and refine it into meaningful symbols and treasured possessions, like the toki. Two key words in there, so refine, that's a big part of our cycle, and you'll see why as we go through. And the toki, the shape of the toki represents strength, determination, and becoming a master of one's craft. So you can see if you're looking at whether it's a project or even a prototype or a design, having kids understand that it's taken strength, determination, and they are now a master of that craft is quite an impactful feeling for a child to have when they go through this cycle, and that shape represents that. Pounamu is often gifted as a taonga and a form of strength and protection for loved ones, while also becoming a valued heirloom for future generations, toko iho. So throughout this, we'll go through, and when we get to that sharing stage, that's that bit where that mana just flows out of those kids and goes, we've done the work, we've got the determination, I'm a master of this, I've done the mahi here, and now I'm going to gift it to you. And that's that sharing stage at the end. Okay, so let's go through the stages and find out a little bit more about them. Okay, so the first stage is that wondering stage, that curiosity, pākeke. Now I want you to ignore what is the big question at the end of this paragraph, because I've got it there but for a different reason than what you think. Okay, so every idea starts with a question, a wondering, that feeling of curiosity. A skill within itself, learners gravitate towards the unknown and begin to make sense of the world around them. A multifaceted wondering works best here, allowing many opportunities and pathways to creative ideas and solutions. What is the big question? Now, I need to rephrase this because this is often where we see people introduce a driving question to an inquiry or to a design problem or looking for that solution straight off the bat. Whereas in this cycle, we actually work towards that driving question, which sits smack bang in the middle. So this is actually all about exposure at this time. So this is all about sparking that curiosity in the hopes that the kids will lead themselves to that question that they design themselves, okay? So those who do not seek will not find is the whakatauki there at the bottom. So this is all about that hook. You'll often hear it as an igniter or a hook, that thing that gets the kids going and they go, oh, there's something I want to learn a little bit more here, okay? All right. Tuhura. This is the second stage. This is a long stage. I often say to teachers, and again, I'm very illegal when I speak, throw your long-term plan out the window because this does not follow a week-by-week schedule. Yes, you can plan your times around how you wish. However, the lengths are not linear here. The lengths are not the same for each stage. It's about where the kids are at. It's about where in the process you want to be. And it's about how much you're putting in. So I've got a school that's using one cycle over the whole year, and I've got a school that's doing one cycle over a day. So it can really fluctuate depending on what you're achieving or what your goal is. Okay? So tuhura is your very long piece, I would say. This is your inquiry-based discussion. This is your curriculum integration. This is your maths rotations. This is your guided reading. This is exposure to that overarching topic that you're thinking about, whether it be sustainability, gardening, native birds, animal adaptations, whatever your kind of overarching topic is, this is where you're exposing them to that information. This is knowledge building. So in that solo taxonomy realm, we're looking at that multi-structural, that fact finding, that knowledge gathering aspect. Okay, so they've seen this rock in the river. They've cracked that rock open and they're going, oh my goodness, there's something in here. There's something really cool here that I want to look at. And as you go through this stage, you'll see kids gravitate towards different areas that you're exposing them to. For example, sustainability. You might do an activity around alternative energies, and you also might do an activity around food waste. And you'll have kids that will gravitate towards different aspects of sustainability as you go through this stage. That just gives you an example of how that might work. So discovery, a pathway lit by passion and driven by the curiosity of what comes next. Learners gather knowledge and dissect information as they bring to light some of the big ideas at hand. New learning occurs as they fill the kete with research skills, learning how to communicate with experts and each other to extract meaningful and purposeful information. So this is where they're getting in touch with the people who know the stuff that they want to know. So this is where they're doing that questioning and kind of finding out that stuff that they want to learn a little bit more about. Scaffolded by the teacher, scaffolded by each other. But this is that real meaty, inquiry-based knowledge building, okay? Just to make that clear. All right. Hono, connect. This is a shorter phase. This is a transitional phase, okay? When you get to hono, that rock now has potential. So the kids in their mind, you're wanting them to go, now that I know what I know, how might we? And that's when you introduce this driving question. This is where you introduce what you're going to be doing. Now, when we say a driving question, I don't know whether this is something that's just me, or I'm not sure. Sarah, you might have some thoughts on this as well. For me, a driving question isn't necessarily the tangible outcome, okay? It's the impact. So instead of saying, this term, we've done all this work on native birds, we're going to build birdhouses. That's what our project's going to be. Instead of saying that, you might say, you know, we've been looking at native birds and animal adaptations, and we've been looking at pollination and things like that. So the question is, how can we increase pollination in our community for future generations? So you're taking that from an outcome-based question to an impact-based question. So that then automatically gives you a process-driven cycle. It also gives you kids that are inspired and know that they can have an impact in the world rather than just complete a task. Okay, that's the big shift for me. That's the big, you want kids to be engaged. Now, Ron Berger has done some amazing, if you've ever seen the butterfly feedback video that everybody has seen probably 100 times. If you haven't, it's a great video. He talks about specific feedback. But he also talks about this level of hierarchy in terms of engagement. So in terms of your audience, and I'll get to that a bit later on, but basically it says, if your project is to make a poster to go on the wall, your engagement is going to be very low. If your project is to share a bake sale with your school, slightly higher, especially if they're making money from it. But if your project is to have impact and is seen by experts in the field and has impact beyond your four walls, beyond your school and with the community and the wider world, the impact and the engagement is just through the roof. So there's a lot of research that's been done around that. So by designing projects like this and questions like this, whether it's in maths, whether it's integrated curriculum, whether it's a technology cycle, just framing it by impact changes the whole scope of what you're achieving. Okay, cool. I won't read that out, but this is the other point in this, and this is where the program's been designed, concept, has been designed a lot for teachers as much as it has for students. This is where teachers are cut off from introducing new information, okay? Because what I often see, and I used to do it, is you'd do this project and you'd put so much of that inquiry-based knowledge building stuff in that you've used 6-7 weeks of your term, say that you were doing it over a term, and then you just have to complete the projects, and you're like, just get it done because we've got athletics, we've got swimming, we've got all this stuff coming up. So you get so much breadth, but you don't get the depth because you rush the doing stage, you rush the part where they're actually the making and the creating and the refining and the sharing, okay? So this cycle has been designed in a way that will slow that down and kind of put a cap on teachers as well to bring that together so that you know when actually now they've got all that exposure information, now it's on them. Now they've got that question, now they've got this potential solution, now it's time for the doing, okay? So that's that transitional phase. So your second long phase is awaha, create, okay? So this is where that rock is now being shaped. And it goes in a traditional whakaaro carving. You would use the toki, the adze, and you would use a large one first, and you'd go right down to a tiny little one over time to create those finer details. And that's what you want to do within this phase, is that creation. Okay, it's that bringing it into being innovative, allowing creative energies to flow unrestricted and imaginative. So learners begin to form a new idea or create a solution using the connections and discoveries from their research and wonderings, which they've done previously. How could we fix this issue? What could we make that would address the problem ahead? This is often where we start, and then we go back to the discovery part. Okay, so we're kind of flipping it around to give the kids an idea of leading them to have that impact themselves, to leading them to creating their own pathway here. What could we make that would address the problem ahead? It's an iterative process that builds resilience and collaboration as they design and create something that was not there before. Okay, awesome. Omiri, refine. This is my favourite stage, which it's often not teachers' favourite stage, but it's my favourite stage because I think it's so important. We've got another module called Game Changers in Our Footsteps, where we interviewed lots of different people who work in STEM industries, like Peter Beck from Rocket Lab and Brianne West from Matique and people like that, to inspire kids. And the biggest message that has come through from them is going, if we've done it right the first time, we're really suspicious because that's never a good thing. If we've done it right the first time, there's something wrong. There's a 0.00001% chance that you've got it 100% right the first time. And kids, we've missed that step with a lot of our kids. So how do we fix this? How do we bring it back? It's by focusing on this stage and calling it refining and talking about feedback, meaning you haven't done something wrong. It means that we're going to collaborate together to make it the best that it can be. We're going to make this even better and have a bigger impact. So this is where you use that reflection tool and you say, are we actually answering the question that we had at the beginning? Are we having the impact? Is what we've created going to have the impact that we set out to achieve? Not, is our birdhouse a birdhouse? It's, does our birdhouse increase pollination in our area? Why? Why not? And by asking those questions, you're getting instant feedback and instant changes that you can make on that outcome that depends on the impact that it's meant to achieve. Okay? This is a really important stage to bring your experts or whoever you've communicated with in that discovery phase or that hook phase, bring them back. You're an expert in the field. How do you think we've gone with this? What are your thoughts? Spending a lot of time here is going to make a really big difference in how your learners engage with learning, what their attitude is towards feedback, and also the outcome that you're wanting to achieve, that depth once again. Okay? So that shape there, that talkie shape, is what we were talking about at the beginning, being a master of one's craft. You're not a master of one's craft straight away. You have to refine that. You have to practice. Okay, so this is all about that. So this might be where you're checking those prototypes. This could be where you're checking with other kids and doing maybe a Shark Tank or something like that, those fun things that get that feedback flowing. Okay, all right. It's a really important skill. Takoha, share, is the final stage. And arguably, I don't know, I say they're all of my favourite or all the most important because I feel like they are. But the sharing stage is like your measurement point, okay? So this is, I sometimes I walk into classrooms and I see 30 passion projects going on at the same time. And I'm going, I did it once. And I just remember going, I actually can't remember what I'm measuring here. I know that they're all engaged, but I can't remember what we set out to achieve because the tangents have gone so wide and the kids are focusing on the process and the outcome that they're trying to complete rather than the impact that we're all trying to have. So with a passion project, while there's pros and cons to all of these types of things, I found that my main concern was making sure I had 4 bits of 4x8 plywood to bring the next day rather than are we actually continuing this impact? Okay, so it's just things to think about. So this sharing point, and the reason I'm saying this now, is when you have these sharing points, it's about the exhibitions, the viewings, the sharing nights, that end point, that measurement of a job well done, a measurement of have we got the breadth or the depth. So often I remember I had a whānau night where we were sharing the kids built apps for sustainability where they all had different apps that were pretty cool. And I did it twice. I did it one term and I wanted to redo the whole thing because I wasn't happy with it. So after the first time, the sharing night was great. We had lots of families in and I had kids running around the room, eating the kai off the shared kai table at the back and just talking to each other. They weren't even talking to the adults. The adults were kind of going up, reading their boards and reading their screens, but the kids were gone. They were out on the playground and I was like, they had fun, they were engaged and they completed it, but I got the breadth. They had all the information, they had all the work that they'd done, but they weren't engaged with it. They couldn't see the impact that they'd had. So what was I doing here? What did I need to refine in the process? By following a process like this, the next time I did it, I had the kids not even know there was food available, talking to whānau, and we had the biggest turnout in their history of family coming to the school. Kids talking to their parents about what they were doing, talking to other kids' parents, and not even reading off their boards, not even reading off their screens, which is when I know they're so passionate about this. They understand that they've made a difference here. So they've got that depth. We've got the breadth as well, but we've got the depth. And that's when I know that I've created a good project, okay, or a good cycle for them to go through. And then it leads to, if you see this image here, they're passing this to someone else. So they're passing this knowledge on. It's almost like, okay, what are you going to do with it now? So it's prompting that connection. It's prompting that next step to go, here's my gift to you. Here's what I've worked on. Now it's up to you. What are you going to, how are you going to pass this on to the next people? So again, it's creating that impact cycle that we keep talking about. Okay. Any questions about any stages of the cycle? Any comments, any kind of thoughts around that at this stage? I'll just pause there for a minute. If anybody wanted to type anything in or if anybody wanted to have a chat, feel free. Just before I jump in. Sarah.
I have a quick question. You were talking then about that different students going through the different processes, and traditionally sometimes teachers can be quite stressed if they find that students are all working on different projects within the same context. How do you manage that? How do you enable the students to go down, use their own passions and their own interests to be able to focus on what they want to focus rather than having everybody doing the same thing?
Absolutely. And I get asked this question a lot because I think, as you say, traditionally there's a lot around either everyone does the same thing or everybody does something different, right? It's that student-led or teacher-led. There's a really nice balance. And I think where teachers can be a little bit afraid of finding that nice balance, where it's both. You're a facilitator. You're that guide on the side rather than the sage on the stage. And you're saying, hey, look, this is the impact that we want to achieve. And you're leading them by giving the exposure in the areas that you're wanting to kind of pull through. So that's where your planning comes in. That's where your professional sense of being a teacher comes in and nurturing that information. And the kids might say, I'll take you through an example. One of our projects that we've built is around food insecurity and food waste. How might we solve food insecurity and food waste in our community? And the whole project is about building a community garden. The kids don't know that at the very beginning, but what they're seeing is examples of that. They're seeing, how's this problem being solved in other places? Oh, there's some community gardens over here. There's this kind of thing. There's this kind of thing. So then when they get to that question, okay, so how might we solve this? You're hoping, and if they don't, that happens as well, that they're going to say, we could do a community garden. We could do it for our community. We can do this. We can do that. And because all the kids have looked at all of this exposure time, you've got kids who are really keen on doing the artwork for it. You've got kids who are like, I know what we can plant. I know what grows at this time of the year. I know who we can have to sponsor for this. You're getting all of that input from the kids that are passionate about those different areas because they've seen the impact that it can have through the examples you've provided. So sometimes, not often, but sometimes it doesn't go that way, and you get kids going, oh, we could build a water park to solve food insecurity. And you're like, oh, okay. And that's when your professional sense comes back in, and you kind of have to tangent them back towards that and give them that kind of ideal outcome. But generally, they're pretty good at coming to that conclusion on their own. But if it's a pretty good idea that they have and they want to do something different, then of course, tangent that way. But ideally, you want to have the same outcome in a way, but they're all going to have their own flavour within it because their passions have come through that discovery phase.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Thank you. And I don't know if anyone else has put any questions on. I've got another one.
Go for it.
Because so obviously with the technology curriculum, I can see how like all the different technology strands really directly linked to this when you're looking at tech practice in particular, and you're going through that kind of same iterative kind of process, and it's very creative and all those kinds of things. Something that I'm not quite sure of when you're looking at the process of Ara Ako is, how do you involve like the people? So how do you involve your local community for local curriculum, or how do you involve the people that you might be designing for? Could you give some suggestions of that?
Absolutely. And I have actually been talking to some people who, and I would love to do this at some stage, is to have this other little kuru that comes out kind of in the beginning stage, like a little one inside the bigger one, that talks about, empathy for clients and brief and that kind of thing. This kind of, the big one runs alongside that. So you would kind of pull those client-based things, depending on what you're doing. You'd pull that in your discovery phase as you go through. But also, if we think about who we're designing for, that's your impact. That's the impact that you're coming up with. So when you're looking at the users or who it's for in that discovery phase, you're then led to, how might we change something for these people? That's that impact question that you've got. So it's just looking at it in a slightly different way, I guess, from a different lens. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like the people that you're working things for is going to be interwoven probably through the whole process, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'll show you some examples soon of how we do that. So we've built 9. Basically, the reason this is existing is because we did a project with the International Antarctic Centre, and we built a See It, Love It, Save It program for Antarctica, which is all about climate change and things. And I thought, because I used to love doing project-based learning in the classroom, and I thought, how cool would it be if the kids did Antarctic adventures and then did a project to show, what they'd learned and have a bit more of an impact on climate change in their backyard. So we did 3 projects, and then it just grew into this monster of its own, and teachers wanted different projects. So we've built 9 projects now that cover a wide range of subject areas. They're all editable. They're all able to kind of be changed, or you can even just use the cycle to plan your own, to use it as a concept It's completely up to you. Often I say to teachers who are just beginning on curriculum integration or beginning to integrate maybe the technology curriculum more so into their core areas, it's a great way to do one of our structured ones first to get the feel for the flow of it and then start building their own. The other cool thing is that all the PLD is free. So my time is available for everybody. There's no ministry hours required or anything like that. You just book me in, whether it's a teacher only day or a Ara Ako session, it's all available to kind of show people this and say, you know, if you think it's viable in your classroom, you can get that there. So I'm just saying, Daniel, can these be forwarded, please, or a link? I'm a technology teacher, but always like, yep, absolutely. So I can send you the email to, actually, I can pass it on to TENS or to Bernie possibly, and or to Sarah to pass it on to all of the people. So I have a document that comes with this that you can see exactly how to sign up, how to access the online versions, as well as our Dropbox, which has posters of all of the stages and everything as well. And strips, we've got the Mid-Kid Speak as well as with the synonyms too. So there's lots of resourcing that goes with this. Cool. No worries. Okay, so let's have a look here. I wanted to touch on this. This is part of the PLD that I do for the ideation process. So I work with a lot of schools to bring, like, how do you come up with the idea for a project, right? How do you actually come up with this whole thing? Because a lot of the time it is very tangible outcome based, that you think, hey, we're going to make a birdhouse, I'll use it again as an example, or we're going to make a community garden or whatever it might be. But how do you bring it back to create that impactful question, right? Because that's the building block. One of the big things is many years ago, Sarah, you've probably seen this as well, and the technology teachers in the room, the educational documentary Most Likely to Succeed about High Tech High in America. It's based in a secondary school, but it has some fantastic concepts that can be brought through about the future of education. It was made in 2017, and it's a fantastic documentary. I highly recommend watching it, and I highly recommend showing it to your parents in terms of school parents. We did this as a Ara Ako and showed it to our ECE cluster parents to get parents understanding why the changes were being made in the classroom to get their support, because a lot of it is around whānau support in terms of projects like this too, right? So part of that was I went to, it was in Queenstown actually, Sarah, when John Santos came over from High Tech High to run the session, and he did this ideation session which inspired a lot of the work that I kind of did in the classroom, and I thought this is a great way to think about ideas. So he showed this photo and it really stood out to me, and it says, you know, teachers have this filter in their brain where we go, you know, you sit there at your end of year long-term planning session with the rest of your staff and you go, oh, we could do this and we could do this and we'll do this, and you start packing in hundreds of ideas and hundreds of things. Then the filter comes on and you go, oh no, we can't do that because we don't know this person and we don't have this money for this, and well, if only we had the funding, and if only somebody did this, and our kids couldn't do that. No, we wouldn't be able to do that. We've only got 10 weeks. We couldn't do that. And you just have this teacher filter that just knocks all of these things down before they've even been able to stand on their own 2 feet. So when we start thinking about project ideas for this type of cycle, I want you to take that filter off, and we talk about that in the PLD, is around, if you have that filter on, you're just going to stick in your comfort zone. You're just going to get those usual yielding familiar results. Okay, so by taking that off, you're going to be able to stretch out, and actually by planning with an idea that seems absolutely ridiculous at the beginning, it's amazing how achievable it becomes when you work through the process and actually start thinking, actually we can. Distance learning and COVID has presented more passion in that area, in terms of you don't have to go and visit Fonterra to talk to the CEO of Fonterra if you're doing a project on dairy farming. Email him, ask him to Zoom with your class. The worst thing he can say is no, right? And it's like, you don't have to stick within these 4 walls of your classroom. There's a whole world out there that your kids can actually access, and not only are they getting great knowledge from these people, they're learning about how to communicate with the wider world around them. So there's lots of different things that can become accessible that weren't necessarily before. Okay. Any questions on that? Cool. All right. This is my semi-not professional looking planning template that I like to bring up, because I think a lot of teachers get bogged down with week by week planning or day-by-day planning. And I think the unit plan, or the overarching idea and the kind of bringing it together, is a really nice way to showcase the impact that you have. So often what I start with is going, okay, in the center, you've got your project idea, whether it is a birdhouse, say. Let's use that. I seem to be saying that a lot today, so let's use birdhouse as an example. We pop birdhouse in the beginning because you know that that's what you want to achieve it for the end of the term or whatever it might be. Then in that top right-hand corner, you pop your vision for your students. And it's not, and I'm going to talk about NPEDL because that is exactly what has brought in the bottom half of this planning template. So yes, so in that top right-hand triangle, you're going to write your vision for the students. And it's not your school vision, and it's not your kind of like mission statement. It's, what do you want these kids to leave your classroom with? The kids that are in front of you, because you know them best. You know you're working with them every day. What are you wanting them to achieve? What are the kind of skills you want them to start working on or achieve? Because it might be collaboration in one class, but communication in another class. So it's about thinking what's for your kids in front of you. And then every decision you make for the rest of this template needs to match your vision, because if you don't, it's always going to be a vision, okay? And I often see this. I see all these beautiful vision boards that go up and all these great ideas. And then at the end of the project or the end of the term, we're still working on the same vision. So we need to start actioning, putting that action in place to get towards that vision and make it a reality, okay? In the top left-hand triangle is, and the one underneath, question and impact. So from your outcome, you kind of go diagonally outwards. So you go outcome, what would be the impact of having 30 birdhouses in your school grounds? What would be the impact of that? And you start just coming up with, well, what is the impact of that? Well, we'd have heaps of birds in our backyard. We'd bring back native birds. It'd be a relaxing place for people to go. There'd be seed dispersal happening. So you're starting to see the flow-on effect of this project. And then from that, you create your question. Okay, so you go, okay, so we're going to have more seed dispersal. We're going to bring native birds to the community. So our question might be, how can we encourage native bird life in our school and increase pollination or seed dispersal within our community, or whatever it might be. It might be an even bigger impact than that, right? So that's the top half, and the learning and curriculum is where you put in that curriculum integration. And it's not things like, oh, maths, science, technology, like we're teachers, we know that, back to front. It's what are those key things that you're going to be doing? So is it, is it volume and capacity, looking at, a specific activity that you want to bring in, because that's going to frame your second stage of the cycle. That's going to frame your exposure phase, your knowledge building phase. So that's going to lead you to what pieces, what workshops you might run, what readings you might gather, all those things, okay? Bottom half, NPDL. So New Pedagogies for Deep Learning was a big influence in this, as well as our Game Changers unit, in terms of developing Michael Fullan's 6 C's, or the soft skills we talk about, which are vital skills, right? So by developing those, we often hide them behind other curriculum areas. And actually, we want to bring this really kind of meaningful, direct acts of teaching to those 6 C's. So how do we do that? And in NPDL, I've done a lot of work in that space. However, I wanted it to be a little bit more actionable within the classroom. I wanted it to be practical and easy for teachers to apply rather than more layers. Okay, so that's why we've put it into this and in our Game Changers program, which links really nicely in a different way. So down the bottom, they're really important points. So connections, community, digital enhancement, and learning environments. Connections, who are the connections you can bring into this project? Community, who in your community is going to support this? Who are your connections within your community? I've split those out so that you don't just think about them as one, because often we restrict ourselves to thinking of our community first without going wider. So that's why they're split out. Learning environments down the bottom, there's a lot of neuroscience around neurons being formed and connections being formed in new environments when learning's happening in new environments. So when you think back to what you remember from school, often it's something that was a first time event, or it was outside of the four walls of your classroom. Okay, so where can you read that book that you're going to inspire the kids with? Will you read it in your classroom on the mat, or will you take them to a place that has something to do with your context where you read that story, so that the sensory kind of things are happening as well as the reading input? So it's just about building that kind of foundation of experiences that are going to deepen that learning even more. Okay. Digital enhancement is often the change between impact. So again, I link back to Ron Berger's hierarchy of engagement and looking at, if it's to do with the classroom and sharing with the classroom, that's one thing. But if it's to go beyond that and beyond into the community, into the world, the engagement is completely different. A lot of that can be switched instantly with a digital enhancement. So instead of creating a piece of artwork or an art walk for your school, place it in an online version of an art gallery that you can find online, so that then it's available to people outside of your school, to people outside of, obviously there's safety things around that, but it's just an example of how you can bring it from just being a school impact to a wider impact. A lot of that can happen with very simple things like creating a documentary that's played at your eyesight for tourists that come through. It could be creating a photo gallery that's then put into the school council and then the community council, and thinking, okay, we've done this work here, what are you going to do about it? So digital enhancements can often take it from that impact level and take it from just a localized thing to a national or even a global impact as well. Okay. Any questions on that? I'm yet to turn this into a beautiful document for everybody, but you're welcome to screenshot that if you're wanting to hold on to those triangles, because I just haven't quite had the time to build a document for that yet. Any questions on that? Cool. So the idea from this information is that you would then start to take all of this info and you'd start to then look at, okay, what fits in each stage? What fits in our pakeke? What's our hook? What's our starting point here? Then you're looking at that learning and curriculum triangle and going, okay, and the vision, and going, how can we use this curriculum stuff here, this learning, these exposure points, and the vision I have for these kids? What are the activities we're going to do in that second stage? Then you get to the practical point where you're going, okay, what are some examples? What's the solutions that we're going to start bringing in to get to this outcome? And then you're saying, okay, what is actually needed here? What's our list of things we need? What's the stuff that you need? Okay. So NPDL is New Pedagogies for Deep Learning. So it's a program. It's similar to what would you say, Sarah? Similar to, it's a way of planning. It's a way of deepening learning using 21st century skills, right?
Yeah. And so, it's considering absolutely everything to do with any kind of deep learning that goes on in the classroom. Yeah, but they also interweave in things like your pedagogical approaches that you use for teaching and learning as well. But essentially, it's this.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I think a lot of that, and Sarah, you'll be the same, and others, you do all these PDs and you see all of this stuff. And it's about not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? It's the finding those things that stick with you, finding those things that work for your classroom, for your kids. Whether this cycle becomes posters in your walls that you talk about thinking stages, whether it frames a whole project, whether it goes through examples, it's completely up to you and your pedagogy and what you want to do. It's not necessarily a program you have to roll out. It's just a way of thinking about what you might do to deepen that learning or to engage. My whole thing is around inspiring kids to know they can make a difference, because often they don't think they can. That's what this is driven by. Okay.
I really like this because I think you can use this in numerous different ways. So you can use it as a teacher with your overarching planning that you've got. I know we've used something similar for like with the NPDL quadrants, and use it as a reflection at the end as well. So you look back on it to review it. But I could see you having this as a poster or a collaborative document in your classroom, and actually getting the students to fill these things in, because it's a great planning tool for them too. Absolutely. So I think you've got, it's a great multi-purpose tool that you can have for the whole process for everybody.
And you're totally right. And it's been used in so many different ways already, which is amazing, which is what it was brought out to do in a way. It's like, it's not my right to tell teachers how to teach in their classroom. I think it's we're all professionals, we're in that space, and we're passionate about what we do. And I think teachers often get bogged down with so many things they need to do and roll out, and things and boxes they need to tick. And it's like, this is a way that hopefully can streamline some of that to bring it together in the way that you want, rather than adding a layer to do it over again, if that makes sense. I was actually going to say something when you were saying, teacher appraisal as well. I've actually done a few schools that have used the cycle as a teacher appraisal process first before they introduce it to the kids so that they can understand that. So I've worked with a few schools around, that pakeke phase, that wondering phase, right down to that question, and actually bringing that in halfway through the process instead of right at the beginning has made a real big difference in terms of the impact of their appraisal. So thinking around, what's it called now? It's not called appraisal now. What is it? It's
the teacher inquiry bits and pieces. Yeah.
That one, teacher inquiry. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. So it's the same situation. It's just, for me, it's about reordering it a little bit and just making sure you're getting the depth. That's the big piece, right? Okay. Now let me just see what else I've got here. Oh yeah, here we go. So these are the 9 units that we've built into the platform. So you can see we've got our titles. Now, obviously, because it's on EP, which is an online learning platform, we're not going out to visit, landfills and things like that. That's up to the teachers to add into the cycle. But what we have done is created scaffolded projects that can either be run independently, standalone. They're all scaffolded the same way, so you can have multiple projects going at once if you wish, or your whole class can do one at a time. Each project has one lesson for every stage, so you can say, here's the whole cycle, go forth, or you can say we're going to go through stage by stage as a class. So it gives you that differentiation depending on your confidence with the cycle, with the style of learning, and also the kids and how they work with you. So there's lots of different ways you can do that on the platform. So just to give you a run through of a couple of them, you can see that it doesn't actually tell you what you're making in any of them. So bottom middle, what drives you, is one of my favorites. How can I communicate what I believe in to inspire others? So this is about oral language, and it talks about students' pepeha. So it talks about values, and we use 660's pepeha, and they replace their values with their own. We then align that to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and they go, actually, where do my values align with these goals? Which one stands out to me here, and why? And deepening that why piece, and then building a TED talk around it. So they learn about the structure of oral language, but also how to inspire people and be a leader within their own right because of something they're passionate about. So it's about discovering their voice in a way. So you can imagine the end point for that as a pretty cool TEDx event, stationed at whatever school it might be. Mahi Mara for Good, so that's our community garden project. Whare of the Future, top left, was our most popular one during lockdown because it was run very well at home or at school. So all of these can be done either way. The Whare of the Future was pretty cool. We had I had photos of Lego houses and recyclable houses, and the Lego house might not have looked like much, but the video that went with it, that had a year 4 student saying, my house has to face 45 degrees this way so that it gets the most sun on the solar panels, which will help me save this amount of money for this year. It was just, the depth is there. Okay. Tales of Our Kaitiaki, middle on the right, that was one of our first ones, and it's a bit like Seven Sharp's Good Sorts. So they actually learn about filmmaking and about an ecological change maker in their community, which is pretty cool. And then our latest one is in the very centre, Protecting Our Why. So that is a freshwater testing kit. The kids design a freshwater testing kit, but instead of themselves going and getting the data, they actually create it so that it can be lent out to the community. So the community then become kaitiaki of our why. So they actually borrow it from the school, take it out and kind of test it. And there's ways that they can roster that and look after the equipment. And that's all, it takes you all the way through. So let's have a look at one of those on the platform. Let me just impersonate myself. Here we go. And I'll just zoom in just slightly. So when you log into EP, and it's free to have a login on EP, all of the other subjects have a cost attached, but Science Alive Matauranga content is completely free to access, so you do not need to be paying for EP to have access to this content. You do just need a login, and that's on the form that I'll send out. There's a whole document that just has all these things that's like, right, step 1, step 2, step 3, so you don't have to remember all of this. Once you get into your login, you can see I've uploaded classes here, so you can upload your class that you can assign things out to, very similar to other online platforms that are around, Google Classroom, Seesaw, all those things. We're going to go into the content library to browse what is there. And you can see I've got cross-curricular pinned to the top because that's where Science Alive Matauranga is. It's not in science, okay? So if I unpin that, you'll see that it's actually down here in a non-bolded category. So I always pin that to the top first thing, so I've got that. You can see all of the other subjects, but you won't be able to assign anything from those. You can only assign from cross-curricular because it's our free subject, okay? Science Alive Matauranga is in here, and you can see all of our resources. So you can see Te Ara Ako is just one folder of a wide range of stuff that's available, and that's all free that you can use in there. I would start with the teacher guide. So there's a Te Ara Ako teacher guide here. I'll just jump in there and have a wee look. So you can download that really easily, print it off, or look at it on screen so you can, and it just talks about what we've talked about today. So it has all of the stages explained to you, a link to email me, so you can see we've gone through that today. If I go down, it's got your curriculum links for your different curriculum areas as an overarching piece, but not necessarily per project, so you can do that if you'd like to bring those in. And we've also built a Science Learning Hub collection that links to kind of this type of learning, but also all of our projects. So if there's kind of documentary or videos or images or experiments that might support you in your classroom to add to, we've done it because I love Science Learning Hub, as Sarah will as well, I'm sure. And there's lots of extra printables and resources that's where you get the posters and things as well. Okay. As we go down, you can see the modules. And then each one has kind of a lesson breakdown, so you can see as a teacher actually where the kids are going to go through for each project. So let's have a look at what one of the projects look like. So if I go into the Te Ara Ako folder, you can see all the 9 projects there. Let's have a look at the wearable arts one, Toi Pueru. So this, as you can see, there's the 6 lessons. So you could either assign all of them together or one by one. Now, you'll see the size of the lesson change depending on that length, that stage. So this one's quite a short section. So you can see there's only 5 slides, 1 slide, versus Connect or Discover will have like 9 slides in that one there. So you can see there's just slight length changes. So let's preview that. This is from a teacher perspective. The student version can actually read out loud, has an immersive reader, so it can all read out to the kids if they need support. She is on her te reo learning journey as well, so she doesn't get it always on point, but she gives it a good go. So we get introduced to the cycle. I can hear my computer sounding like it's about to take off, so apologies if there's any kind of disruption happening. We see where we're at, what stage we're at, and then we start kind of just bubbling away at that exposure of that overarching context. So we start on a really zoomed out level, and then we start zooming in by the time we get to that hono stage, okay? We're going on a problem solution voyage. We're going to be kaitiaki of the whenua, okay? That's the only kind of pinpoint piece we're going to start them off with outside of that context, talking about the process, okay? There's a wee bit here to get them thinking. What are your taonga? So this is our hook piece, whereas if I was in the classroom, I would take them to a field trip and use this as well, or one or the other. But if you can't do that and you need a resource, then we've created that for you, that scaffold as well, okay? A second wee piece, how can you inspire others? What are some ideas? You know, each taonga has a story. So first to ask them, what are your taonga? What are things that are special to you? How do you share those? How could you share those? And just getting them to start thinking and bringing those to the surface. That's it. They head to the next stage. So you can see how short that piece is. As they go through, they do that discovery piece. Once they get to connect, they're going to start with their workbook. Now, this is a really key piece. So you can print it, you can have it as a Google Doc, whatever it might be. This is a way that you can have collaboration going. So you can have the kids have this together and collect all their work in one space, save you going in and out of lessons all the time. This is a booklet that they get to keep and they get to work on. So Toi Pueru is all about using the principles of biomimicry, so looking at a taonga in their environment, using the principles of biomimicry to then turn that into a piece of wearable art that has a message at the end, okay? So it's a bit like, I don't know why it reminds me of those books where it's like the CD-ROM, it's like, turn the page. So it's a bit like that. So whenever they see this mahi ate mahi box, they link to their workbook and they go and fill in the activity or whatever it is. So we've done all of that scaffolding for you. so that you can literally take this away and kind of digest it and then go, actually, we're going to do this project, and you can see that scaffolding go through. Okay, so it goes through all the different pieces. What's your colour palette, sustainable materials, your brainstorm, and all of these link to those different sections. So here, write about your chosen taonga and the message you want to share. Fill in hono 1 of your Toiperu workbook to identify it. So it just links, so it gives you that work all in one place. Okay. Now, again, all of this is editable. So you can actually make a copy of this like you would on Google Slides, and you can put YouTube videos in, you can change the wording, you can do whatever. Same with the Google Docs. So you can actually use this as a foundation to do with it and make it your own, depending on what you'd like. And again, they're all built for all of those 9 projects. And we've built them to be about 6 to 8 weeks of work, depending on how much time you put towards it in the classroom. Okay, so that's kind of the online section. At the end, it's really just about them uploading their workbook, and you would have your own kind of event or whatever it might be in the classroom. For the community garden, they create their own blessing, and they create their own kind of process around opening the garden. So that would be run in person, obviously, rather than online. But we might say upload a video mainly so that we can see it. Yeah. Cool. The other thing to mention is that we have a Facebook group, Science Alive Matauranga. That's where I drop new lessons, webinars, more information, anything that's coming up. Highly recommend joining that. That means you'll be the first to know when new things come out, new projects. If you have any questions or suggestions, we're building a wetlands lesson next year because the teacher really wants it for next year, so we're going to do that. So, I didn't have the time and resources to do this stuff when I was in the classroom, and so now my job is to help teachers have the resources that they need and feel confident with it. So I will stop there. It's a lot of information to take in. I've just hit time. I'll just come back here and just finish off by sharing a wee karakia to end, and then I'll open it up to let me skip right through to this one. There we go. To end, and then I'll open it up for any questions. So, kia inoi tātou. Ka whakairia te tapu. Kia wātea ai te ara. Kia turuki whakataha ai. Kia turuki whakataha ai. Haumie, huie, tai kie. Awesome. So if anybody has any questions or comments, please feel free. Pop any questions in or any comments at all, just let me know. I love to hear what people think, so it helps me make sure that we're on the right track. And yeah, I can send those resources through.
Just while we're waiting for people to pop some things in the chat if they want to, I just want to say that was really, really inspirational. Thanks, Lauren. I mean, I've attended quite a few PLD and run my own PLD on like the design thinking process. But what's really amazing is just how woven in Matauranga Māori to our Māori, we're actually making this really pertinent to our students in our country. But it's not restricting them, it's actually enabling them to be really creative and really innovative and problem solvers of the future. So it's taking the best of lots of different frameworks and making it better is what I can see here. An amazing presentation, and I'll be definitely in touch and taking some of this on board and actually taking it to some of my student teachers as well, that I think would really benefit from understanding this creative process, especially when you're looking at future focused education and like the curriculum refresh and that integrated learning approach. I think something like this, you can hook everything into it. I mean, you showed those resources, and you look at the literacy, you look at the numeracy, you look at all those different aspects, and that's what you can do when you've got a really, really great deep learning framework available. And I think that's what this is. And having all those resources online too, is especially helpful for those people who probably aren't as comfortable in this space and don't know where to start. It's some great starters for people as well. So yeah, I was going to say, yeah, Kapai, it is amazing. And well, thank you very much as well from our side of things. I'm not sure if we've got any questions from anybody else at the moment.
Nothing that's come through, but yeah, thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. And yeah, it is definitely something that isn't designed to be restrictive or one size fits all. It's a take what you need, leave what you don't. It's a make it fit your life, your practice. The more we can do to help, the better. I had Tākaka Primary they messaged me and said, do you happen to have a really, really high resolution version of the cycle? Because we're doing a 5x5 meter poster of it in our staff room for a collaborative session. And I didn't even know they were using it. So, there's all these things that we can kind of do to help out and change and iterate to help teachers and help schools who want to understand it more. So definitely my email address will be on the document that comes out, as well as the docs, as well as everything, to find out more about it, and just take the time to digest it and email me if you would like to have a chat or have any other questions. I've just seen one come in, fizzing with all the potential and ideas and now buzzing around in my head. I have an email open to colleagues to share with them literally right now. That's fantastic. We've been working to have all of Year 11 start their year with a STEM inquiry. It has been tough to manage, but this could be super amazing for us, even just to have as a template to scaffold to build our idea. Absolutely. Take a look at if you're Year 11, I'll assume your school might use EP or know of EP already. Take a look in cross-curricular, check out the existing projects. There's also the webinars are all on that Facebook group, so you can have a look at some more of those. If you'd like to discuss that with your team, we can do a planning session. All of that's free as well. So definitely use the resources and let me know. Absolutely keen to help.
And I was just thinking, to support with that, we've got some resources with TENS as well. We've got an authentic context document, which is a live document, which loads of teachers from across New Zealand have put in loads of different ideas for local contexts. And these have been successful in the classroom. So if you're trying to find an idea or something like that, we've got that, which is a free resource for people online too. And we're just releasing a load of planning templates as well to help to support people, specifically in technology. But so documents which you can help to support you with this process as well. So if you want to help to scaffold the learning too, we've got those which are just about to be released in the next newsletter for TENS actually. So
Cool.
Oh, no worries.
That's awesome.
I just like how everything all supports
it does
another, which is amazing, and it all just really well integrates. Totally. Yeah.
And one thing I will say just before, because I know that you've put the time into typing in that question, is I was a STEM teacher before I came into this role. I've been doing this for 2 years now, and I've done a lot of writing articles and things around what STEM or STEAM is. We're about to embark on a new project until June next year called STEAM Pacifica. So we're going to move away from Matauranga Māori for a bit and focus on our Pacifica nations, our neighbours, and look at the Indigenous knowledge that can be forwarded into future roles in STEM. So that's going to be coming through. But the big thing for me, and this all links in together as everything does, NPDL, all the stuff, STEM for me is not necessarily the knowledge in those areas, it's the skills that link all of that together. So if I have any advice to you right now, is to think about how those skills can be shown within whatever context you have, rather than trying to cover off the knowledge within the letters as such, because you'll find that those adaptable skills, those transferable skills, will then allow kids to go further in each of those areas or in a variety of them. That would be my take on that. Yeah, so that's something I'm pretty passionate about, so happy to chat more on that. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, everybody. It's been lovely to be here, and as I say, let me know if you have any questions.
And once again, Lauren, thank you very much for giving up your time as well to come in to join us, which was amazing. And like we said, we'll have this recorded webinar up on the TENS YouTube channel as well for everybody to have a look at in their own time as well. So thank you very much.
Cool. Ka kite anō.
Ka kite.